was a little boy living in the last century. I thought about living in the future, then it occurred to me. I turned around, the future was now, the future was all around me. Nothing like I had imagined, it was totally confounding. Oh, 21st century life, I got swept away. I got 21,000 things that I gotta do today. 21st century life, well, what can I say? The new world's got me feeling so good, I think I need to get down and pray. Well, now I turn on the TV just in time enough to hear what the Pope said.
Whoa, we've really come a long way.
Yeah,
I'm Lisa,
I'm Leanna.
and we have both completed our undergraduate degree here at McGill University and are now in the midst of pursuing our Master's in Educational Leadership. For our project, we decided to focus on the area of technology in education because it's very relevant to both our current schooling as well as in our boards and schools that we work at.
So we decided to focus on exploring teacher mindsets towards teaching with emerging technologies in their classrooms. So we interviewed 10 teachers, 10 of our colleagues, and asked them certain questions. And here's what we got.
So right now I'm teaching grade 8 and grade 9 English.
Teach secondary 2, 4, and 5. I teach history and geography, secondary 2, repeaters history, secondary 4, and Italian, beginners and intermediate levels.
Level 2B, which is equivalent to 2 strong.
My level is called DPA. It's for students that have professional diplomas already.
ESL, English as a Secondary Language for Adults.
I'm teaching history secondary 4 and I'm teaching science secondary 5.
Teaching level 4 in basic literacy.
I teach secondary 1 and secondary 3, adult ed English.
I teach elementary school.
That did Sec 5.
They help to keep the students' attention and to integrate material into the teaching environment.
I think it makes them, it makes the class more motivating, more interesting.
Well, I use technology every day. I think the smartboard and images are extremely useful in the classroom. I feel that showing real, authentic material such as videos, newscasts, are important for students because they see and they can actually use this as opposed to fake material that they have no use of.
Technology is very useful when it works, and it does make life easier.
Well, I feel that it could be useful incorporating certain technologies in the classroom just so that it could get the students' attention, especially at the elementary level. However, not many schools have the sufficient funds, I guess, to obtain certain things like a smartboard or other devices such as iPads, which we've starting to see in a lot of schools. It's not the reality everywhere, but I mean, it could be useful if we would have it.
I agree with the lack of funds. I feel that it's inevitable, given that we're dealing with digital natives, and so we're aiming to give them what they know. It's relevant. They spend a lot of time with technology, so it's a tool. It's just a 21st century tool.
I mean, I think coming from like Generation X and growing up with the computer and growing up with technology, it's come a little bit more naturally to me. So, you know, when something's come across my desk or something I've learned in a workshop or something like that, I find because I've grown up with it, able to figure it out, as long as it's user-friendly, I guess.
Scale of 1 to 10, I would say 7.5.
On a scale of 1 to 10, I'd say 5. I'm learning.
I would say I'm a little over average. I'm not the Wizard of Oz. I don't know everything, but I know quite a bit that I can utilize it in class as well to help my students.
They do on my cell phone.
I don't think so.
Personally, I don't think that they should be in the classroom because I do believe that students still should be getting their instruction from a teacher and shouldn't necessarily be spending their class time on an iPad. Especially in my sector, teaching English as a second language, sometimes I only see my students once a week, and I really want them to benefit from hearing an actual native speaker, those 55 minutes a week instead of them glued to their iPads the whole period.
I agree with Andrew in the sense that they need to have they need to have a lot of input, so valuable input. However, the apps could be, for example, in lieu of your classic exercise book. There are some voice recognition apps that can work. They can make their own videos for dialogues, and then if you have we're language teachers, so the value is arguable, but there are some very, very good apps if we're talking about math, science. There are a lot of apps that are very hands-on that the students could benefit from. So there's a place for it.
In general, I use YouTube, I use the smartboard, I use websites, I use PowerPoints.
I don't usually use apps. When I use, for example, when I use smartboards, I don't usually use apps. I just directly go on the internet, or I'll use programs, but I don't normally use apps.
So yeah, they are offered. We actually have a director of technology and innovation in the classroom. So we have this person who's like our go-to resource person, and she brings, I'd say, at almost every staff meeting or PED day, she's bringing something to the table, for us to be able to look at and potentially use in our classrooms.
They are offered at our school board. However, we don't really have a large budget for these types of formation, which is what they're called. I guess they could be useful. Personally, I've never really been to one, so I can't really say if it would be useful or not, but I could definitely see that, I could benefit from it if I would want to incorporate it in my classroom. Sure.
We do have these type of workshops. Unfortunately, we don't have the tools that accommodate the app. So for example, iPads or iPods would have to be borrowed, and they would be in the vein of a special project with groups that would oversee that. So the material would have to be borrowed. We don't have the material.
Yes, we have a yearly conference, and there's always one or two workshops that deal specifically with technology, and I like them.
I've been to one when I was first starting out teaching. Really, it wasn't very interesting as I thought it would be. It was just very basic stuff. They were showing, the basics of utilizing a smartboard and basically like people who wouldn't know how to use Word. So it was kind of like a loss of time for me.
I think that they should be a lot more thorough. I find, in my past experiences, those giving workshops are kind of lacking in terms of overall knowledge and a little bit of the lingo. If I would suggest something, perhaps somebody a lot more familiar with technology as a whole should be the one conducting these workshops.
Yeah, I'd say I always learn something, even if it's only the web addresses of a couple new applications that I can check out on my own.
I guess they do avoid them because I don't have the technology that they're teaching about. Because I don't have a smartboard or an iPad.
No, I would not.
I would not, but I think it would be profitable for me and for my classroom.
I would say at the beginning they were very helpful. You know, when we really didn't have a lot of technology to incorporate into the classroom. I think now that, you know, specifically where I'm working, where technology is, where I'd say we're a very innovative school, and every single teacher uses technology in their classroom. It's mandatory. So I would say now, you know, it's kind of slowing down a little bit as far as, you know, now it's more like a buffet. You kind of pick and choose what you want to do, whereas before you were kind of consuming all of this technology and trying to figure out what was, you know, going to work for you.
I usually am engaged, and I usually do learn something.
Usually not. I learn a lot.
So for history and science, I'll say for science as a subject itself, it's a very abstract discipline. So if I can tie in a method of learning that's more visual, that's usually a lot more successful with students, and students have an easier time retaining that information. In terms of history, less so than science, but still highly effective.
I mean, I think that good pedagogy is good pedagogy no matter how you're looking at it, and if technology is going to enhance your subject area, then I think, you know, you have to use it. It's all about the pedagogy at the end of the day, so.
I know, I think it has a place in every subject. Maybe, yeah, no, every subject. Well, maybe phys ed, but I'm sure there's something you can do with phys ed. There's gotta be something. Yeah, there's like physical tests and stuff, yeah.
Honestly, I think the students are ahead of the teachers when it comes to using technology, and just being exposed to the technology will inspire them to get even further ahead.
They get the chance to do exercise, to go on YouTube, to practice, to memorize things, to repeat what they hear online. And also they can utilize that in their benefit in class. Also, when I'm teaching in class at the same time, it goes to their benefit. But I do believe on their own time, their own spare time, using that practice into the technology definitely makes a great change.
It makes it more interesting for students because that's what they're looking for a lot of times. They have such short attention spans nowadays. They're so connected to their phones that something on a screen will attract their attention. So it's important.
Doesn't work.
we have problems with consistency of the internet. So unless you've got a backup with a USB key or have something on your hard drive, live is difficult.
You always have to have a backup plan.
Yeah, there is no live accountability.
We are provided with materials to help enhance the learning for students. That's why I'm not really a big fan of it in class. I do believe that the learning gets processed through the books and materials that are delivered to the students. I do believe that technology, could be a big factor, absolutely. In the future for myself, if I were to work for some other ESL company, technology would definitely be a great advantage to help them, absolutely.
Ultimately, it's just ignorance. It's like we're still building up our knowledge, and I know how to use technology in a lot of areas, but I can't say I use it 100%, but I believe that technology can have a place in virtually everything I do, but it may not yet.
I guess that they could show us. We could go to some trainings or workshops to learn how to use the tools that we do have. Personally, the tools that we already do have in my school, for instance, are like a projector and things like that. I mean, I already know how to use, so I guess it depends with what the school has, of course. That's what it comes down to.
Joanne? I think it also it has to do with the person's comfort level. With me, I'm very comfortable with troubleshooting, with trying to figure it out. I mean, in terms of like the hardware, the projectors, speakers, and all that stuff. I figure it out. But I think teachers are afraid of screwing up in front of the students. And so if we could eliminate that, it's like, okay, you know, you're not comfortable with technology, ask a student to help you, you know?
If they could do a YouTube channel really discussing in depth the different functions, that would be great. But to be honest, for me, I'm familiar with the technology, but for those who aren't, I would suggest some kind of internet tutorial would be sufficient enough for these inexperienced teachers to basically learn more about technology, because if they research that on the internet, it's readily available to them at any time, any day.
My school could possess more equipment and make it more available and just let people play with it. If it breaks, things happen, they happen, but it's the best way is just to use it.
Last time I used technology in the classroom, I had the opportunity to use a smartboard, and I used it to do an interactive game, an exercise with verbs with grade 5 class, and it worked out pretty well. Yeah.
Joanne?
I use a smartboard regularly with my Sec 5 students. Right now they're learning to do research. And so I showed a TED talk on, I think the last one was bullying. And yeah, so I just showed a TED talk, and then we had a discussion afterwards, and then we went through some techniques, persuasive techniques. Again, all online.
And today, I had students who were putting concept maps up of a forthcoming essay they're going to write, and I had some on the blackboard, and I had others working on the smartboard so that they could draw their concept maps, save them, and we could virtually look at 6 or 7 concept maps. All people could be working all at once rather than one at a time.
Okay, so I mean, I would say I use a variety of things on a weekly basis, I guess. So the first thing is that all the teachers at my school, we all have a website or a wiki where we post our homework, we post tutorial videos, we post the rubrics, we post the assignments, the calendar of dates, and all of this stuff. So I mean, that's something that I'm updating almost every day. I mean, I use a lot of Prezi and this sort of thing when I'm introducing class novels. You know, I find having the visual aspect of things to put the novel into context really helps to get the students excited about what they're about to read. So, I mean, I would say, you know, that's what I'm using the most. But I do have students on assignments use particular programs. In my Sec 2 English class, we just did graphic short stories. So there's a whole slew of programs that you can use online for free that help you to make comic books, basically, which is what they were doing. So, and it worked very well.
I had a PowerPoint presentation, and students took notes, and there were images, and that was more interesting for them to look at.
I mean, one thing that I would categorize it as to be very effective is grammar, because, you know, sometimes I'll be explaining whether it's verb tenses, pronouns, or anything that deals with grammar in class. I can't be reminded, so but if you're watching a video online on how to use the present perfect, for example, you can go back and forth to see how it's used really. So that's one great advantage that technology has, especially for grammar. Grammar, I feel, is very important for them to know, so their verbs are all intact. So yeah, I mean, I would say that's one big advantage for technology for sure.
Math is a bit more difficult, I think, but I could still see different ways of using it. However, for ESL, you could use it 150% of the time. For math, you still have to do your basic, calculations, and algebra is always going to be algebra. I don't know if you can make it that much more richer. I don't know.
I think it does, and I think that's where the variety of apps and programs comes into play. You know, I think that if you're, let's say, doing something that's math or science-based, then like online tutorials and pencasts and this sort of thing can be like really useful when the students want to consume the material over and over and over again. I think in other subjects like English, certainly it comes into play, but it doesn't. I don't find use for it on a daily basis in the classroom.
Help, as we said, I think it helps to give them focus and give them the audio and the video to get it, to bring them in. But on the other hand, sometimes just a simple text has a way of you retain more by using the text as opposed to watching and listening. So the reading and the writing still has a huge contribution to be made in the learning process. So we can't, so it depends on what it is we're teaching that day.
Because
They complement each other.
by just recopying something right there, you're retaining it much more than just
Watching.
watching.
Oh yeah, it's passive. Watching is passive. Watching and listening are passive. Reading and writing are active.
One disadvantage with technology is that I feel like people tend to become a little lazy nowadays with technology. Everything is done for them. Nobody really, for example, everyone uses a calculator instead of just doing it plain old mathematical style. So there are advantages and disadvantages, but technology does play some great advantages in the classroom. Yes, absolutely.
I think it helps 100%, as I've mentioned, because they actually see and they're using authentic material. However, sometimes it can hinder because maybe some students are not open to this. It depends from which background they come from. Some students are very workbook based, and this can hinder because they're not open to learning with a technology-based classroom.
I think, every year I kind of evaluate the technology and I evaluate my class. And I would say with some classes, I find I'm able to use it more than with others, and it's all dependent upon the students and what I think, they're able to handle, what kind of media are they able to consume and, be able to understand. So I think for the most part, the mainstays, the go-tos, I think they do enhance the learning. I think the students, they enjoy being, like we're a laptop school, so I think they enjoy using their machines to, produce material, whatever it is, if it's movies, if it's music or whatever, I think they do enjoy that. And I think it's a valuable skill because, using technology, I think is not something that's going to go away anytime soon. Having a mastery of different programs and, being able to use it effectively, I think is going to be a valuable tool.
I've definitely seen a big difference in the way they engage with the technology. Like I said, I think the students are way ahead of us in using the technology. I think they're quicker. Some people might say they're more superficial because of texting and things like that. But
Well, yes, if I'm to hand out a regular worksheet, it's more of a unengaged response. They'll do the work. However, if we're going to do that worksheet on the smartboard and they can circle and they can touch, they can select the answer, everyone's involved because everyone's like telling them, no, it's A, it's B, it's that letter. So I that's what I've noticed.
Did any of that ring true for you? It definitely resonated with us. There is certainly a lot of ambivalence surrounding this topic, but conversations are a great place to start.
Based on our responses, we found a number of recurring themes, such as issues relevant to the private versus public sector, school budget, student engagement with the technology, teacher comfort levels. Interestingly, a lot of these themes have nice connections that we can generate some good discussion.
To access our full research report and our discussion, check out our website at edtechmindsets.weebly.com. On our site, you can read our full report, find a SWOT analysis, and find resources that can assist teachers using technology in the classroom. We hope you enjoyed.